you for watching my channel and my Native Americans and Star People playlist. I'm going to read you a little excerpt from a book here about Sasquatch, or Bigfoot. There are literally hundreds of American Indian legends suggesting a steady line of interactions between the Native Americans and the Sky People. There's an episode from the journal of an early cattleman which implies not only an association between American Indians and UFOs, but also with the mysterious creatures variously called Bigfoot or Sasquatch. The account was supplied by James C. Wyatt of Memphis, Tennessee, in a journal dated 1888. Wyatt's grandfather records that he was somewhere along the Humboldt line in the Big Woods County, where his father and several cowhands had wintered with a tribe of Indians after delivering cattle to a fort farther north. One day, he came upon an Indian carrying a large platter of raw meat. Now, at first, the man seemed afraid to answer Wyatt's questions concerning his errand, but he finally asked the cattleman to follow him. In a shallow cave in a cliff face dwelt a beast with long, shiny black hair that covered its entire body except for its palms and an area around its eyes. The man-like creature did not seem wild or vicious. It sat cross-legged, Indian style, to eat the raw meat. Wyatt described the creature as built like a big, well-developed man, except for that it lacked a neck and it had long body hair. The creature's head seemed to be resting directly on its shoulders. Crazy Bear, as the creature was called by the Indians, had been brought to the Big Woods from the stars. A small moon had flown down like a swooping eagle and had landed on a plateau a few miles from the Indians' encampment. The beast in the cave and two other crazy bears had been flung out of the moon before the craft had once again soared off into the stars. Other crazy bears had been left behind in the vicinity over the years. The Indian villagers had occasionally seen the people who dropped the crazy bears from the small moons. They didn't look like the giant hairy ones, but appeared to be more like men, such as themselves. The men in the small moons had much shorter hair than the Indians, however, and they wore shiny clothes. They always waved to the Indians in a friendly manner before they closed the door to their small moon and flew back to the stars. The crazy bears had been led to the village by the Indians, and at no time had the hairy giants offered any resistance to their benefactors. The Indians believed that the crazy bears from the stars had been sent to bring them powerful medicine, and they would not permit the creatures to stray for fear that they would be captured by rival tribes. Each of the American Indian tribes I'm familiar with cherish legends which tell of their people rising from the destruction which had been visited upon a former civilization. Now, most of the accounts deal with the surviving peoples having escaped from a terrible flood, immediately suggesting the biblical story of the deluge and the Atlantis story. The principal point of each of the American Indian stories of destruction and rebirth is that civilization is cyclical, continually being born, struggling toward a golden age, slipping back toward moral decay, and forward into death throes, only to be reborn so that the process can be repeated again. Immanuel Velikovsky once said in an interview with Science and Mechanics magazine that prior civilizations are buried so deeply within the lower strata of the earth that we simply do not have archaeological evidence of their existence. But, he stated, we have abundant references in literature, even in rabbinical literature, that many times before this present earth age existed, the same earth was created, then leveled and recreated. All civilizations were buried. By far, the vast majority of ancient texts deal specifically with the phenomenon of catastrophes. In the Old Testament, we read of geological disturbances in which a mountain melts like wax. The sea is torn apart or erupts on the land, and cosmic debris is bombarded upon the people. The ocean parts to show the foundations of the earth, and we say that all these things are metaphors. This is what makes it appear to me that mankind is a victim of collective amnesia. As such a victim, he likes to play with atomic weapons, then repeat the events that took place. The victim of amnesia, who has undergone a traumatic experience, seems to want to relive these experiences. The Seneca legend of the seven worlds says that man has relived such traumatic experiences 6 times before, and that we stand on the brink of destruction prior to entering the final world in our evolutionary cycle. The Hopi legend of the 4 worlds agrees and states that mankind is about to enter the final world after a last great war. A war which shall resolve the spiritual with the material and create one world under the power of the Creator. Now, for the American Indian traditionalist, the destructions of the previous worlds would have been a necessary part of mankind's spiritual evolution, because man has repeatedly forgotten the lessons of the Great Spirit. The Earth Mother has been periodically cleansed for new epochs. If the old prophecies are correct, we have little time to avoid becoming part of the collective amnesia of some future generations. And I have to say, like I've said before, this goes right along with the teachings that I've been taught as a Native American traditionalist. And there are many stories about the Bigfoot or Sasquatch, oftentimes having something to do with the star people. Now, I've touched on this topic before in the past. Sometimes people have commented that the star people are evil or have ill intent. And I have to say that we have a tendency to pass judgment on others collectively. And what I mean by that is we have a tendency, excuse me, to say all people of this kind are bad. Like we might say that all Irish people drink, or that all Black people are not to be trusted, or that all white people tend to take everything they can get their hands on. So we can categorize people, black, white, yellow, red, and pass judgment on them as a whole. And I think that that's what we're doing with star people. Because yes, there are definitely have been some terrifyingly evil stories about star people in the past, as well as the recent past, the distant past, as well as the recent past. But there are also stories of star people helping others. And I don't think that we can collectively say all of the people who visit us from other planets or other systems or from other stars or the past or the future or another dimension, whatever you want to call it, we can't say that they are all bad or all good. Indeed, if you look at some of our science fiction, you'll see that in Star Wars and in Star Trek and in several other sci-fi movies and series, you have good and bad people from other cultures, from other races, from other stars, from other planets, because nobody really lives on a star. A star is the sun. Other planets would be more accurate. But whatever you want to call them, there is good and there is bad. And sometimes that good and bad can reside in one being. One being can decide that they're trying to be good or do something that seems good and noble for their race or for humanity or for all of collective beings, for the universe. And because we have a limited knowledge, obviously they're more advanced than we are, or they can fly to other planets and such, we can't. So perhaps they know things we don't know that make some of the stuff that they're doing that seems evil actually makes sense as being for the greater good, to try to actually help us. It's kind of like when you go to a doctor, and if you didn't know better, and the doctor said, we need to do surgery because you've got something wrong inside and we need to fix it, and we can fix it, and it's a simple surgery, and you'll be well on your way in no time. And then you go under the knife and you wake up from anesthesia and you feel worse. Now, if we didn't have the mental capacity to understand that this was all for our good, for our own good, that things would be better in the long run because of this, we might think that the doctors were trying to hurt us or trying to do something bad to us. Or if we really didn't know, we might think that they tried to implant us with something that would cause us harm, or so they could track us and cause us harm in the future. We wouldn't know. And I just want to put it out there for thought that it could be that some of the things that seem very evil and like they're taking us and taking away our control might actually be in an effort to try to help us, because we don't know. We just don't know. And until we do know, I think that it would be wise to keep an open mind and not judge each and every one of them as being on the same page of pure evil and trying to hurt humanity. Indeed, some may be, no doubt about it. I'm not saying that's not the case. But what I am saying is that there are probably, because this is what happens with beings, whether it's humans or animals, you'll see that there are a group of people that are trying to do good and a group that are trying to be greedy and take things for themselves and take away other people's autonomy. So there might be a struggle going on up there, where some are coming down here and doing as they will and taking advantage of us in whatever way they wish. And there might be others that are trying to stop it and trying to repair that damage. We don't know. I just want us to reserve judgment. And I wonder about these crazy bears, so to speak. Why did they get kicked out of the moon or the little spaceship? Was it because they had done something bad? Was it because they wanted to live on Earth? Perhaps these were some experimental type of hybrids. Were they seeding the Earth with this type of being? Had they taken this being previously and were they returning it? We don't know. Anyway, it's a lot to think about, and that's why I'm really glad that people in the past, whether it's the near past or the distant past, have written these things down for people like us to explore today. Thank you very much for watching.